Hello, I'm Matthew Honestchuk, and welcome to my YouTube channel. On this next segment of Coffee Chat, which I call The Experiencer, I'm going to touch on my experiences in life when it comes to my interactions with extraterrestrials. So I'll start from the very beginning. When I was 5 years old, and my parents bought me my very first new bedroom set with a red blanket, I was one of the most excited young lads in the world because in those days, my parents did not have a lot of money, and that was just kind of the way it was. We had a comfortable existence for the most part, living in Canada, but there was times where we had to do without certain things, and that's not a bad thing for me to have grown up in because it certainly helped with my value system of what is important versus what's not important, at least in a materialistic sense. But here I am, 5 years old, and I get this new bedroom set with a red blanket, and just excited. And very shortly after my mother and my dad had bought me that, my mom came in one night to teach me how to pray. And she just basically taught me a very simple prayer, which was, I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. And that's what she taught me. But for some reason, it was very inert with me to know that there was something beyond what I could see with my senses. I always had a sense that my creator was real. I didn't have to be told that. When my mom first taught me how to pray that specific prayer, I would start every night by myself saying that prayer, but then I would just expand on that into a normal conversation. I would say how my day is going and can you help me with this? And, in those days, my parents, had a bit of a volatile relationship. I mean, whose parents didn't in the 1970s? They didn't have access to information like there is today. And going to get help was, ooh, that was a bad thing. And people would talk about you. So parents just struggled through their relationships. And unfortunately, kids of my generation took it right on the chin. But it's okay because I've learned so much from that. At least at this stage, it seems okay. So I would just expand upon these dreams at night. And so one evening, my mom tucks me in, I go to sleep, and somewhere in the evening, I wake up and there's something in my room. And I can't really see it too good. I mean, it's dark, but I could see images at the end of my bed moving around. But it was more the feeling. Like the feeling was just terrifying. Like it was just like my whole body was on fire. And I didn't call out to my parents. You would think a 5-year-old would do that, and to be honest with you, I don't know why I didn't. Maybe I just didn't want to create more drama in the family because there was many nights when I'd go to sleep and I would be wakened up by arguments that my parents were having, and that's hard for a kid to listen to. But again, I don't lament on it because although it was traumatic and it led me to some false belief systems I carried for a period of time in my life. I'm at the point now where I've healed those, and boy, although it was a long slog, I'm so much better for both having the experience and learning how to walk out of the experience, so to speak, from a traumatic perspective. But so here I am in this bedroom, and it felt like there was three of them in there. Again, I couldn't really see them. They seemed to be short at the end of the foot of the bed. So I just did what every 5-year-old would have done if you're not going to cry out to your mommy and daddy. I just took the blanket, the red blanket, I put it over my head, and I was laying down in the prone position and saying a prayer, saying to Jesus of all people, please come, please make them go away. I'm so scared. Please protect me. And this loving feeling of peace came over me. I could feel it. It was like it came from the top of my head and rolled down my body, and just a loving feeling of acceptance and peace and everything's going to be okay. And then I felt like what happened was I drifted off to sleep and then woke up the next morning and everything was fine. That was the end of the memory. There was more to it. It was just that, I didn't discover more of that memory until later on. In fact, most recently in my lifetime, after I started channeling, a lot new answers, clarity came through on many events in my life that helped me kind of start piecing things together. So I didn't say anything to anybody. I'm a 5-year-old kid. Oh, the morning's here. I made it. Okay, great. Let's just get on with the day and forget about that. And I literally forgot the memory for decades. For decades, until a conversation with a friend on an unrelated topic just sparked the memory, and it just bam came back vivid. Everything like I just described came back, and I just said to them, "You have to stop and listen to me for a second before before I maybe forget this again." And I just relived the account, and ever since then, and not only do I not forget it anymore, but there's more to it. And basically, I won't get into the whole story, but it's just when I went under that blanket and felt that loving peace, it was a loving peace that those beings were imparting upon me, because I realized they were scaring a 5-year-old child, but they still took me blanket at all. They still took me blanket and all. And I know that sounds shocking, but allow me to share more stories with you. So I didn't know at that time what it was, because obviously I had tucked that memory away and I went on with my life, so to speak. But then as I got into late teenage years, 18, 19, and into my adulthood, I started to have more dreams like that. And they got very specific and very um, almost always came at a time in my life when I was leveling up. So, for example, if I was starting a new romantic relationship, if I was starting a new job, if I was when I got baptized as an adult, so I recall this happening at that time. The list goes on. So when I left town to take a new career job, when I was contemplating getting married, anytime I had to level up, where there was a specific dream that I had before in my life that I was now actually manifesting and joyful about it and fulfilling about it, and boy, let's go, go, let's go. I'd have these, what I would call evil nightmares. And what would occur is I would go to sleep, and then somewhere in my sleep, I would wake up, but in a dream state, and then realize that, oh, there's something in the room with me. There's I could feel that presence, and it was that feeling I had back when I was 5 years old. And the first time I had this was around 18, 19 years old. And what it feels like is I'm laying down in the prone position in my bed, and the energy comes in from behind me. Even though the headboard of my bed in those days was up against the wall, it felt like it was still something that was coming behind me. And the energy comes from behind me, and it feels nefarious. Like it just feels evil. And at least that was the way I used to interpret it until I got more clarity and I realized it's the opposite, which I'll get into in a minute. But this energy comes in and comes over top of my head. And it's like it's a blanket coming down from the top of the head and goes down my body. And as it does, my body gets paralyzed in sequence as that energy goes down until it hits the end of my toes. And then the toes are the last one to get frozen. And it's so paralyzing, you can't move anything, with one exception for me. I can move my vocal cords. I can scream, but I can't open my mouth to release the air, the sound. So I can do guttural sounds of like you're trying to scream. And there's no more terrifying feeling than this, because it's one thing to be paralyzed. It's another where the fear is generating the vocal cords to release the energy, because that's how we release fear. We scream, we yell, we shout. That's a mechanism for us to release that energy from our bodies. And when you can't, it's contained within the body. So that just adds to the fire. It's like gasoline on a fire. On top of the fact that your mind doesn't have any clue what's going on. So it's freaking out. The whole thing's just shambles. And I know that people talk about sleep paralysis and that there's some scientific reasons why, and that there's some spiritual reasons why. On the scientific side, I've seen people explain it as it's the state where your conscious mind is starting to wake up from the dream state, but it's waking up faster than the body wakes up, and so you feel like you're paralyzed. On the spiritual side, I've seen people explain it that we as human beings are actually multi-dimensional beings, believe it or not. Yes, we're physical, but we have a soul. And when we go to sleep at night, a spiritual explanation is we astral travel, where our soul leaves the body to go off and do something, whether it's to learn something, get information, or just check out from the body for a while and take a break before it comes back in and wakes up for the next day. That when the soul's coming back into the body, there's a disconnection between the body waking up and the soul being fully integrated back into the body. That explains that paralysis. And that may very well be true for a lot of people, but that's not my experience, because I have a lot more that goes along with that. And so, although I have this paralysis feeling, I'm wide awake. Yes, I'm in a dream state, but I'm wide awake. It's technicolor. It's just like this room right now. And you'll see in a previous video that I explain about how I became a channeler. There's a little bit of an explanation of what those technicolor dreams are like for me. But for the most part, for this video, I'm laying in the prone position, fully paralyzed, and then the next step happens, which is my body levitates off the bed, and I go up to the ceiling, and I'm doing everything in my mind, trying to ask for help, because my face is about to squish into the ceiling. And just as I get to the top, and my nose starts to touch the ceiling, it's like the memory from there gets cut off. Everything else that happens after that is blanked out. I don't get to see it. With one exception. When I was in about my mid-20s, that whole process happened in one of these events. And it was, again, during an event in my life when I was trying to level up, and I'm having, oh my God, another one of these evil experiences. And in that experience, I was in a room, but it wasn't my bedroom. It was like I was in a hospital room and on a gurney. And I couldn't move my body, but I could move my head. I could go left and right. And I remember turning to the right and seeing a window beside me and saying, "Oh, it must be nighttime because I can see the stars." And then I realized the stars are moving. It's like, we're on a ship and we're moving. It was kind of like that viewer in Star Trek when the ship's moving and they see the stars, but they're coming at them. And then that's when I realized that the window had this green ooze all around the perimeter of it. Almost like a house window in the sense that, you caulk the window with silicone to keep the draft from coming inside. Except whoever did this job, it was like a bit of a joke. It was like instead of using one tube for a window, whoever did the job used 20 tubes, and it was green silicone because it was so gobbed on and it was so green that it was actually dripping. And then I realized, oh my God, it's organic. It's actually alive. How, I don't know, but I just knew inertly that it was alive. And then I realized in the room that I was in, there was this low hum, wom, 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 a very methodical vibration, wom, wom, and I could feel it through my body, and I could feel it through the gurney I was on. And then when I was looking at the window with this green ooze, the green ooze that was green was changing shades of green. Every time it would go wom, wom, the material would respond to it by changing color. And then I woke up out of that dream state and I went, what the hell was that? That was just so bizarre. And again, it was just another memory that was left with me to help me start to tie these pieces together, what was occurring, but much later on in my life. At that time, what was occurring, and I interpreted it as evil, call it the devil, because I was from a Catholic background. And because of my natural inclination to praying to the Creator and asking for help and guidance and receiving it and living my dreams and things coming true for me the way that I desired them, I just felt like this was like some jerk of a nefarious type, call it the devil or one of his underlings. I didn't know at the time. I just knew it was something I didn't want to be involved with, coming and trying to scare the bejesus out of me when those other events were happening in my life, like trying to scare me out of leveling up and becoming a better person, a more fulfilled and happy person. And so um, because it was so vivid and so real, I just accepted that this was my cross to bear. That however I chose to live my life, there was always going to be something that knew me and said, we got to stop this guy because he's going to help himself too much or help too many people in life. And I just figured that's the way it is, right? That's the war that, maybe my religion's been teaching me between good versus evil. And this is my experience. And so I didn't tell anybody. Nobody knows about these experiences until I became public with this, with one exception. Just my mom and my wife were my trusted allies in this, and are very good listeners, even though they don't have these experiences. So from that perspective, nobody knew. And I didn't want to tell anybody because back in those days, they would call you crazy. Anybody would call you crazy. And because I was also living through, my traumas of I'm not feeling good enough, I'm not feeling worthy enough, I want to be picked for the team, and I'm always picked last. And I'm like, oh my goodness, the horror stories I used to create in my mind. I wasn't going to tell anybody this because then it would just segregate me more. At least that was my fear. And so I just lived with it and accepted it. So whenever I was in my daily life and say a boss came and said, "Hey, Matthew, we got a promotion for you," I'd be like, "Oh, great. Okay. Thanks very much." Because I got to go home and have a sleep now. And then the next couple of nights, I know what's going to happen. So that went on for the majority of my life. It still does to this day, believe it or not. But when I hit 40 and had my health crisis, which I've explained to some degree in other videos, um, something else changed in that moment. I started to discover what my true gifts for being an empath were. I was already into an understanding that I had a predictive nature of receiving information in my dream states, or receiving helpful information that I could employ in my life that was very truthful, because it always worked out. Whenever I did what I was told to do in a dream the next day or the following week, boy, did it ever work out well for me. I also discovered my channeling gifts. And from there, that's when I started to explore mediumship, channeling, because it started to call to me. It was never part of my original dream set as a child growing up. And in fact, if anything, my family was just a bunch of what I call young, happy professionals living life large, using all their skills to the best ability for the benefit of their families and their neighborhoods. And they're very good people. My family are very good people. And I was a part of that in my own way. But then this aspect came into my life. And where that took me from there was those gifts helped me understand what was really going on in those previous experiences, and also helped me to further develop those experiences through by forming a relationship with what was actually coming in. So here's what I discovered. It's not the devil. It's not a jerk. It's not somebody trying to stop me from leveling up in my life. It's actually somebody coming into my life during those important milestones to contribute, to help me, to benefit me. And so here's what I've discovered is that it wasn't the devil. It was extraterrestrial experiences. People will refer to them as alien abductions, UFO abductions. I don't see it that way now. It's, to me, I call it the experiencer, where I'm experiencing something that is beneficial to me. And so what I've learned is that before we come into this lifetime, we set up our lifetime path. We get to decide all the events, where we're going to land, what's going to happen to us in our life versus what's not going to happen to us in our life, to learn a set of lessons that we want to learn. One of the things I discovered is one of my major lessons is learning patience and tolerance. In addition to a whole bunch of other things, which was, learning to understand that you're worthy at all times. So I had this period in my life where I was feeling unworthy all the time, and I had to work my way through that. And that's part of my journey, which you'll understand through some other videos that are already posted. But for the most part, that's where I really understood that, hey, I got to call the shots of my entire life plan. And when you do that, you can make it as hard or as easy as possible. You can learn lots of lessons or just a few important lessons. It's all your choice. It's your blueprint. You decide. But you also decide who your guide team is going to be and who's going to be involved. So for people outside the spiritual path, guides are guardian angels. It's just another name. You can use whatever name you would like to use, but they're people or beings that are assigned to you. And they could have been beings that had previous human incarnations that are now doing the guide thing as their role, to be helpful and supportive in their own development while helping you through your life path. But you can pick other beings too. You can pick ascended masters. You can pick angels. You can pick extraterrestrials. Yeah, because they do exist. And that's my experience. But apparently, I set that up to be part of my experience here. And so when I was leveling up my life and my reality life, my regular reality life, when they came, it was them taking me to their ships to do what needed to be done, whether it be an energy attunement to my body, or to impart information to me that would be helpful in my life, that I would remember at some point in terms of a memory that I can employ, or also to gain information from me. Like, what's it like to be 5 years old, Matthew? Tell us, when we came for you that one time and we realized we were scaring you, Like, what did you do? How did you work yourself out through that? And so they're learning from us just as much as we're learning from them, or at least I am learning from them. So it's a two-way street, and it's beneficial in a multitude of ways, which I'll get into other videos. But for this video, I just want to finish it off by describing how my mindset changed from it being, a negative, nefarious experience to being a positive one. And it's simply this: I learned through my gifts and through receiving information that what I felt in terms of negativity is not negativity. It's just that our bodies as humans, physical humans, even though we're multidimensional, the body itself vibrates at a certain rate. And for most humans, it's vibrating between 40,000 and 60,000 frames per second. So that's our vibratory rate. So if you view yourself as a tuning fork, that's what your tuning fork's vibrating at, that frequency. When they come into the room, they vibrate at a much higher frequency because they're multidimensional beings. Yes, they do have physical bodies, but they don't have to be in physical form all the time to travel and do the things they want to do. So when they come into the room, sometimes they're in physical form and sometimes they're not, but their vibration rate comes with them nonetheless. And they're vibrating up of 250,000 frames per second and higher. So you can imagine if their tuning fork comes in at 250, 260, and you're at 60, there's a big disparity there. And like two tuning forks, the lower vibrational one starts to attain the vibrational rate of the higher one. And when our body feels that vibrational rate, there is a built-in mechanism that is always there in every single body. And that is, it knows it's physical and knows that there's a soul in it. And when that soul decides it's time to leave and end its life in terms of the physical life and move on, the moment of death, when your soul's departing your body, it's non-physical and it's leaving the physical body, so it's really non-physical now. It vibrates at like 300 frames per second. Your soul vibrates at that high rate of energy. And so the body knows when it starts to feel that high rate of energy or that high rate of vibration, it freaks out because it's like, oh my God, it's leaving and I'm going to die. And because the body doesn't want to die. It knows it's got a purpose. It knows it has a lifespan. But when it feels that, it's still going to freak out. But that's what's happening when they come to visit me, or us for that matter. When you're in the presence of a being of that level of vibration, and again, it could be an ascended master, it could be an angel, it could be an extraterrestrial, but they're just high vibrational rate beings. Your body is interpreting it as if your soul's going to check out, and then that's not what's happening, but it doesn't know that. And because you, the mental person, don't know what's really going on in terms of the experience that's occurring, the mental brain's going crazy because it's like, I can't see anything, I can feel this, but I don't know what's going on. The body's freaking out. And again, it's like gasoline on the fire. So of course you're freaking out. And so that's why they paralyze you. They paralyze us because we're in fight or flight mode. And if we are not paralyzed, we could harm ourselves or we could harm them because although they may be non-physical in some respects, they are physical in their own respects. So they have bodies and they can get harmed just like we can get harmed. One tangent I'll share with you, they make mistakes too, just like we make mistakes. That's how we all learn. So irrespective of whether or not a being is from a different planet that's of a higher wisdom, higher experience level, higher technology level, they still make mistakes. Just like societies that exist on other planets that are behind our human evolution curve, where they're still someplace else, maybe in caveman days, they have physical beings and they are making mistakes. We're all in the same universe because the purpose of being imperfect is we learn from our mistakes. This is how we grow. This is how our souls learn. And it's why we come here. We come here to learn a set of lessons, and you can't learn lessons if everything's perfect. So I suppose you can to a certain extent, but not to the same rate and pace. And that's why, at least in spirituality, they say that Earth's the master class. We're all masters, you included the viewer. We're all masters because we came to the toughest planet in the universe to learn a set of lessons. And we're in it right now. This is like the pinnacle of education, so to speak. So in my experiences, they paralyze me so that when they take me up to the ship to do what they need to do, I don't harm myself and I can't harm them. Now, fast forward to this period in my life now where I have learned about my gifts of being an empath. I've learned about my gifts of mediumship and psychicship, and now I'm now a channeler and developing that skill. Not only have I learned how to piece together all those memories now so that what I once thought was negative is now actually a positive experience, I'm also able to communicate with them, and they communicate through me. So as you've seen in other videos, I channel an Arcturian being named Nathan. I also channel a mantis being named Ella, and they've been introduced to me through my journey. So again, I know it sounds a little crazy, but that's my experience. So take it at face value. I always say what resonates with you, take and leave the rest. And if nothing resonates with you, that's perfectly fine. I hope you find your answers someplace else that will help you connect with your genuine nature and help you find your path in life that is fulfilling for you, and so that you have nothing but joy, peace, and happiness in your life. But for me, that's what I've learned through my channeling gifts. And so, from that perspective, it's been a very big blessing for me, because it's also been very helpful in the healing of my traumas, which actually helps those gifts to expand outwards. And so, the last experience I'm going to share with you is one of the most profound ones. This goes back to the spring of 2024. So, in March of 2024, I had my QHHT session, which I've mentioned in other videos. And essentially, in that session, I met Nathan for the first time in terms of an interaction. I had been introduced to Nathan with a flash of a neon sign in gold letters saying Nathan in a meditation 10 years earlier in 2014. But nothing beyond that profound experience really came of it. So in March of 2024, it's like I first got introduced to him. And through that session, he told me that I was going to have my Night of the Dark Soul starting on April 18th of 2024, which is about 5 or 6 weeks after that hypnotic session that I was in was concluded. And Night of the Dark Soul, for anybody who's new to this, is essentially when you're down the path of discovering who you truly are, and you're releasing your traumas, and you're working with whomever who's helping you. Um, you will get to a point where you feel like you want to make a quantum level leap up, and you can ask for the Night of the Dark Soul. Now, just because you ask for it doesn't mean it's going to happen, but you'll get a sense when maybe perhaps it's happening, or at least be aware of what that means, so that if it does happen to you and you weren't asking for it, at least you understand what you're going through. But essentially, it's this. It's just a moment in time when you're going to cry like you've never cried before. You're going to scream like you've never screamed before. You're going to let something out of you. It could be physical manifestations. It could be emotional manifestations. It could be all kinds of different ways that the body is going to release its trauma. And for some people, it's one night. It's Night of the Dark Soul. You go to bed, you wake up in the middle of the night, and all this is occurring, and it could go on for hours, into the wee morning hours, and then it will pass. And then because you purged what needed to come out, that creates more space in your being, because you've dropped that 100 pounds of potatoes of whatever it was, and now something new can come into your life that's more in alignment with you, because you let go of the stuff that's no longer in alignment with you, that you've been carrying for far too long. And you become a better person because of that, more joyful and happy for starters. But Night of the Dark Soul can also last a lot longer. It can last days, weeks. In some cases, I've seen testimonies of people saying it lasts months or up to a year. I wasn't looking for that. I mean, I was hopefully getting away with just one night. But anyway, Nathan said it was going to start on April the 18th. And I never asked the other question, which was how long it was going to last. Why, I don't know, but I'm glad it didn't, because it lasted 21 days. I woke up on the 18th feeling very, very ill, determined to take my morning walk. So I laid down on the couch and decided I'll put my shoes on in a minute and I'll suck it up and I'll go. And I heard my guide Jeremy say to me, "No, man, you save your energy. You're going to need it." And then I felt that wisdom of just go back to bed. So I did. And when I woke up, I went through what was 21 days of the most physical purge I think my body's ever gone through. Call it the flu from hell, but with a cold and shivers and hot flashes. And it was just, I won't go into too much detail because it was just what my experience was, but I knew I was getting purged, and I could barely eat food. I just drank water. So no vices were going into my body. No bad food was going into my body. I was just barely like on life support, so to speak. And when I came out of that 21-day period, on the 21st day, I woke up and I just knew, oh, I could feel it starting to dissipate. And I knew I was at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. And over the next few days, I gathered my strength back up and I was able to eat again. And by a week later, say it was 20 days, 28 days out from the start of it, I was much better, like 95%. And so I decided to go to my old hometown where my mom lives and visit her. I hadn't seen her in a month, and I love the woman to death, and she's also my best friend. And so I went to visit her, and we had a good time the first day. And that day, I made arrangements with a fishing buddy of mine to go fishing the following afternoon, the next day. So I went to bed that night, and I woke up in the morning knowing that I had a few things to do around the house with my mom, but I had this fishing expedition to go out with my friend because my boat's in the same hometown. It's where the great salmon fishing is in the springtime, and it was spring. It was a wonderful time of the year. And but I woke up that morning feeling like I had been drugged, like that heavy feeling you have when you come out of a general surgery and you've had anesthetic where they put you under and you feel that groggy, toxic feeling, and it just, oh. And I've had that feeling before for a couple of reasons. One is I've had a couple of minor surgeries in my life where they had to knock me out. So I know what that feeling's like physically in real life. But it was also an experience of when I'm being invited to the ship, so to speak. I don't want to use the word taken. It's an invitation for me. And so sometimes when I wake up from those experiences, beyond just the memories I've shared, I also have that feeling of, oh, why do I feel so groggy? And I've always related it to the fact that it's part of the paralysis that they put me through. So I just accept it. So this particular morning, I woke up, but I had no memory of anything happening that night. I went to bed, clean as a whistle. I slept 8 hours. I don't even remember dreaming. And I woke up with that groggy feeling. So I went, okay, well, maybe they came, maybe they didn't, whatever. Let's move on with our day. And off I went. And on the boat that day, we had about 2 hours before sunset because it was a late afternoon. And I have a very big boat. So I have a helm seat, and then in behind me is about 6 more feet of deck where you can fight the fish. It's kind of like a Florida boat would be. And I was with my buddy. And for the first hour and a half, we were catching nothing. There's nothing on the fish finder. And I'm like, this is not right. This is not the way it is this time of year around here. So I just kind of just melted into enjoying the environment, which is what I do. Sometimes I just look at the water, I look at the sky, and my mind will drift a little bit, and I just enjoy the environment because I'm in tune with it. And my buddy is playing his video game on his phone, and he's at the back of the boat, a few feet away from me. And I'm looking up the sky, and it's about an hour and a half before the sunset. So it's blue skies, beautiful white puffy clouds, and the light's starting to filter through it. I'm like, oh man, is that ever beautiful? Look at that. I just love that. And then all of a sudden, I could feel them. I could feel the extraterrestrials. And it was a loving feeling. It was coming down from the clouds. It was almost like they were behind the clouds, and that they were sending a message down of love and appreciation that you've done such a good job. So keep going. And I was like, wow. And the tears were just flowing from my face like crocodile tears. And I could feel that love. Very reminiscent of when my friend Mike died and came to say goodbye to me in my dream, which I've shared in other videos. That loving, encompassing feeling. And telepathy, I could feel their messages to me. They were just amazing. So I just said, okay, well, if I can hear you, you can hear me. And I said, so why don't we try something different? Why don't we stop paralyzing me? I don't know if it's necessary anymore. We're building this relationship. I'm obviously developed to a point where I understand what's really happening. So if it's necessary, so be it. But we have this thing on earth called cordialness. It's called like knock on the door first before you barge into my room. Like, come on, just knock on the door. Even if it's just a physical sound. And if you come in a form that I'm familiar with, that I know is non-threatening, that is loving. So, go into my memory data bank and pick out an image of something that makes me feel comfortable. And we'll start with that. And then perhaps what we can do is level up. Every time after that, you come to visit me, change the form a little bit closer to what you look like and a little bit more closer to what you like. So sequentially, after each visit, eventually we'll get to a point where when you really show me what you look like, it's not going to be a big shock. It'll be something that we ease into. And I felt like I got an answer back of, okay, we can try that. And from that point forward, I'm just wiping the tears off of my face, and I'm really just praying that my buddy behind me doesn't see what's going on, because he's a loving guy, he's an open guy, and he would be happy to listen to the story, but I don't think he'd get it on the first try. Um, So at that point, I'm like, okay, end of transmission, I guess. So we'll just keep on fishing. And I saw a boat out in the east fishing. I noticed it earlier. And I thought, maybe that guy's out a little bit further. Maybe I need to go deeper east because that's the direction you normally take from my 30 years of fishing in that area. That's the direction you take, right? When it's slow where you're at. You never go west. West is no good. And so I started to turn the boat east, and all I heard was, no, 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 no. Stay on your current heading of north northwest. Stay at the same rate of speed, north northwest. And in 15 minutes, you'll get into the fish. And I went, really? Like, I can still be a skeptic. After all that, there's still that little voice inside of me sometimes and goes, you better double check that, you know? And it's a good skill to have. And I always tell anybody who's listening to my videos, be skeptical. Always be skeptical. Ask yourself if what you're hearing rings true to you. And if it does, take what resonates, and what doesn't, discard the rest. And if nothing resonates, no problem. Go find someplace else where that information that will be helpful to you resonates with you, because this, your heart center, never lies to you. Never lies to you. So always listen to your heart center. Um, and so I just trusted the information that came because it was such a loving moment. I was still feeling the love. I thought, what am I going to do? What harm can it be to keep on my course heading for another 15 minutes? And lo and behold, around 13 minutes, I looked at the fish screen because it beeped and there's fish on the bottom. I'm like, oh boy. And there's an indentation in the lake. It was very 65 footish and it went down to like 69 feet. Like there's an indentation, like a little trough. And then it went back up to 65 feet. And those fish were in that little trough. And as soon as I went over top that, because the lines are about 300 feet behind the boat, so another minute passed, closer to 15 minutes, the line, one of the rods goes up, and my buddy puts his phone down and goes, fish on! And meanwhile, he has no clue what was going on with me at the helm. And then I'm like, terrific. And all we did for the next 45 minutes was go back and forth on that spot. And we picked up 8 huge lake trout, and we had a great time. But here's where the story gets interesting. After we get back home, he goes to his place, and I'm still at my mom's, and I go to sleep that night at my mom's, and nothing else occurs. I wake up the next day, and I travel back to my hometown in Toronto. And that next evening, when I'm in bed with my wife, we go to sleep, and I have one of my vivid lucid dreams. In my dream state, I am awake. I mean, wide awake. Yes, I'm in my dream state, but I'm wide awake like this. And I turn to my side of the bed, and right beside me, where I normally get out to get around to go out the bedroom, my wife sleeps on the opposite side. My wife's standing there, and I'm looking at her, but there's all this white, amazing ambient light, just beautiful white light. And it's coming from everywhere and nowhere. And it's illuminating her. And she's wearing this beautiful white gown that has blue sequins in it. And the blue sequins is shimmering. And there's light coming out of her. In fact, the light coming out of her was even brighter than the light around her. And we're in our 50s, but my wife, in this case, it looks like she's 30, and she's always been Godsmack beautiful. But I'm like, wow, boy, do you ever look good today? And she has this beautiful smile on her face. And I just said to her, Snookums, what are you doing? Snookums is my pet name for her, like dear or, babe. Um, and she's just standing there, and all she does is this. So I looked at her a second time. I said, Snookums, I don't understand what you're trying to tell me. Like, what are you doing standing here? And she does it a second time, basically pointing with her eyes to the left, but I wasn't picking up on it because I can be a little dense sometimes, the obvious things in life sometimes pass me by, but on the flip side, the most unobvious things I can pick up on too. So it goes both ways, I guess. But anyway, I asked a third time because 3 times the charm, right? And I said, Schnookums, I really don't understand what's going on here. What are you doing staying by the bed? And she did what she normally does in real life with me, which is when I'm being dense in a moment, she just rolls her eyes like, oh, for crying out loud. And then she does this. And I went, oh, you want me to look to the left? So I turned to the left, and there is my wife sleeping beside me with her face towards me, looking as beautiful as she ever does in her real body. And I was shocked because I turned back, and there was the second Selma standing there. And now the light's even more radiant, and there's a big smile on her face, like, you're finally picking up on this. And I looked back at my wife in bed. I looked back at my wife beside the bed, and I must have gone back about at least 6 times. And then when the final time came and I turned from my wife in bed to the wife standing beside me, then the smile and the emotion came through, which was excitement, celebration. We're so grateful that you figuring out what you're looking at because it's us. You asked us to come to you in a form that you found loving and acceptable and nurturing, and we chose her form, but it's us. And we are ready to get started. And then, just like that, everything disappeared. Everything was gone. And I woke up out of that dream state, even though in that dream state I was wide awake because it was as vivid as this. And I popped out and I went, what the heck was that? But the ambiance of the feeling was still there. It was beautiful. It was loving. And I turned to my wife, and she was in exactly the same position with the same look that she did when I was in my dream state. And had she had any other position in the bed other than the exact position than what I saw in my dream state, I may have questioned this, but the feeling is so deep and the love is so nurturing that it leaves no doubt. It's just like that moment in your life when you know that the person you want to make a commitment to in a long-term relationship, um, that moment comes and people ask you, how did you know? You just say, I don't know. I just knew though. It's just that kind of feeling. But she was in the exact same position. So that just blew my mind. So I'll leave that with you. This is my experience. This is what it's like to be me, a channeler who never planned for this. I mean, let's be clear. I never dreamed of this. I never desired this. It was never on my radar screen. The life that I'm living at this moment with my family and my friends and the way that I partake in life with the joys of the work that I do, etc., are always been my dreams. They've all come true, and I'm always grateful to the Creator for leading me down the path that I have been guided down. And now, more so, even more grateful for this other aspect of my life. You know, the aspect of channeler, the aspect of experiencer, the aspect of Reiki master, and more. There's more to it than that, but those are the three top ones that I practice at this time, because that has helped me on this path. It's helped me to achieve the things and the dreams and the desires I had from the age of 12. And it's become a very critical component of my life. So the best way I will leave this with you is this. Take what resonates with you and use it to the best of your ability as you see fit through your own choice of free will. And anything that doesn't resonate, leave it behind, because that's the way I've built my blueprint for my life, which is I've learned from many different sources, different people, different gurus, different practitioners, and different regular folk like me and you. And I've picked and chose the ones that have given me knowledge um, and a path to follow in terms of practices that resonated with me. And I tried them and they worked great. And a lot of them I don't do anymore. They served a purpose and they don't work for me anymore. So I let them go. But then I turn and I see what else is next on the shelf and I bring it in. But I've made those choices fundamentally for myself. And that's my blueprint. And it's not a blueprint that's going to work for anybody else. It works for me. And that's what I encourage you to do. Take what resonates and utilize it to the best of your ability in the way that it suits you, and leave the rest. And if none of this resonates with you, I don't have any issue with it whatsoever. In fact, I say good for you, because if something doesn't resonate with you, don't incorporate it, right? Follow the path that you're living, and there'll always be a people, a person, a set of circumstances, or something that will be falling into your path that will resonate with you. And so this is why this channel exists. I've called it First Contact Channel Insights for a reason. All of my life experiences, and plus all of this aspect of my life that's integrated now with my overall life, has led me to this point where I truly believe that we are on the precipice of first contact with extraterrestrials who have always been there guiding us, always been there as a big brother or as a big sister, helping us to hopefully choose for ourselves to listen to the wisdom that they have to share, but always respecting our aspect of free will. And if we want to destroy ourselves, they won't stand in our way. But they're trying their very best to encourage us to listen to what they have to say and decide for ourselves if it's worthwhile to incorporate that into our individual lives, to pivot and to find our true nature, our true authenticity, and live it for one reason and one reason only. It's what fulfills us. It's where our love and our passion and all of our joy reside, is when we follow a path that we're meant to follow because it's a part of our original blueprint that we created. And that's where I'm at, on all of this. And if it doesn't come true, if they never reveal themselves in my lifetime, at least, then I'm okay with that. I really am, because the benefits have been so profound in my journey of discovering who I really am and living my dharma, and discovering that joyfulness back into my life, and letting go of all the trauma and the fake stories and the false belief systems that didn't serve me. If it's all fake, if it's, I use the word, let's say it's a fantasy. Okay, it's a fantasy. It doesn't come true. But I'm a happy guy, and it's working very well for me, and I have a wonderful symbiotic relationship with those who understand me and love me and are in my life, and that's enough. That's always been enough. I never needed this to have more. It's just that it's led me to this point that I'm so convinced. I'm so convinced that they're here and they're going to reveal themselves, and it's going to change everything in our society for the best. And that my role is some form of playing the role of teacher or educator, or some form of an interface between their announcement, their introduction, and how we position that information to anybody who would like to receive it, so that they get the truth and the understanding of what's really going on. And again, if it doesn't transpire, no problem. I'm living a happy life, and I will continue to channel because I find it beneficial for my own purposes and for those who are interested in receiving anything that would come through for their benefit. So I'll leave that with you and with my blessings, and I hope that you find all of that which you deserve, and that you bring the joy and happiness into your life that you're seeking. And take care. God bless.